Sylvester Stallone stands 40 feet from a massive explosive rig when the pyrotechnic supervisor gives the final warning. What happens in the next 12 seconds doesn't just create one of cinema's most iconic action sequences, it nearly kills him. And what Stallone does immediately after changes how everyone on set understands what it means to be a professional. Philippines, February 1985. The jungle location for Rambo, First Blood Part 2. 40 miles outside Manila. Deep in terrain so thick with vegetation you can't see 20 feet ahead. The production has taken over an abandoned military compound, transformed it into a Vietnamese POW camp, rigged it with enough explosives to level a city block. This is the climax scene. Rambo's final assault. The moment audiences have been waiting for. Everything needs to be perfect, because they're only getting one shot at this. Literally one shot. You can't reset a fireball. The compound is rigged with 72 separate explosive charges, propane mortars for the fireballs, gasoline bladders for the rolling flames, 4 simulators for the structural collapses, squibs buried in fake walls, flash pots in the guard towers. Every explosion timed to the second, choreographed like a deadly ballet. One mistake, one miscalculation. One charge detonating early, and people die. The pyrotechnics team has been setting this up for 3 days, measuring blast radiuses, running safety calculations, checking every wire, every connection, every charge. The margin for error is 0. Stallone is in full Rambo gear. Torn fatigue pants, combat boots, no shirt, just the tactical vest loaded with blank ammunition. His body is covered in mud and fake blood from previous takes. Sweat cuts lines through the grime on his face. It's 96 degrees. The humidity makes it feel like 110. He's been shooting action sequences for 14 hours straight. Sprinting, diving, rolling, climbing. His body is exhausted. But this is the shot. This is what audiences will remember, so he'll do it right. Director George Cosmatos calls everyone to positions. The stunt coordinator walks Stallone through the sequence one final time. He'll enter from the east side, move through the compound as explosions detonate in sequence. The pyrotechnics will track 10 feet behind him. Stay in that zone, and he's safe. Move too slow, he gets caught in the blast wave. Move too fast, he outpaces the explosions and the shot looks fake. Timing is everything. Stallone asks about the shrapnel guards. The coordinator assures him every charge has directional plating. The explosions will throw debris outward and upward away from Stallone's path. They've tested it 6 times with dummies. The corridor is clear, safe as they can make it while still looking dangerous. Cameras are positioned at 8 different angles. This sequence is costing $340,000. One take, no room for error. If something goes wrong, if Stallone hesitates or stops, they've lost everything. The pressure is immense, not just financially, artistically. This scene defines the movie, defines Rambo as a character, the unstoppable force moving through chaos. It has to be real, has to feel visceral. Audiences can smell fear, can sense hesitation. Stallone knows this. He's built his career on authenticity, on doing things other actors won't do, on making audiences believe he's actually in danger because he actually is. The assistant director calls for quiet on set. 150 crew members fall silent. Stallone takes his position at the edge of the compound. Closes his eyes, breathes, gets into character, becomes Rambo. Not Sylvester Stallone, the actor. John Rambo, the soldier. The man who doesn't fear death because he's already died inside. The man who moves through fire because fire is all he knows. Cosmatos makes eye contact with Stallone. Stallone nods. Action! Stallone explodes forward, sprinting into the compound. The first charge detonates behind him. A fireball erupts 30 feet high. The heat wave hits his back, intense, burning. He keeps moving. Second explosion. Third, each one closer, each one louder. The compound is transforming into hell. Flames everywhere. Smoke so thick it blocks the sun, debris falling like rain. Stallone weaves through the chaos. His movements are precise, calculated, every step planned. But he's also reacting, adapting, because no matter how much you choreograph an explosion, chaos is chaos. Things go wrong. He's halfway through the compound when explosion number 7 detonates. This one's different. Louder, bigger. The blast wave hits him harder than expected. Stallone stumbles but doesn't fall, keeps moving. Professional. The shot can't stop. But something's wrong. There's a sharp, burning sensation in his back. Not heat, something physical. He felt something hit him, hard, fast, like being punched by a red-hot fist. His brain registers pain, but he suppresses it. Not now, finish the shot. Deal with it after. 3 more explosions. Stallone reaches the far end of the compound, stops, turns. Delivers Rambo's final look back at the destruction. The look that says, "This is what you made me." That 1,000-yard stare that became iconic. Holds it for 3 seconds. Cut. Perfect. That's the one. The crew erupts in applause. They got it. One take. Perfect execution. Cosmatos is ecstatic. The cinematographers are reviewing footage, already knowing this is going to be spectacular. The stunt team is congratulating each other. Everyone's celebrating. Except Stallone isn't moving. He's still standing in the same spot, breathing hard. Not from exertion, from pain. His back feels like it's on fire. Not metaphorically, literally burning. Something is very wrong. The stunt coordinator notices first. Runs over. "Selly, you okay?" Stallone tries to speak. His voice comes out strained. "Something hit me, my back." The coordinator moves behind him, goes pale. Medic. Medic now. Stirs a piece of metal lodged in Stallone's back. 3 inches long, jagged, smoking, still hot from the explosion. It penetrated through the tactical vest, through his skin, embedded between his ribs. Blood is seeping around the edges, not gushing, not arterial, but steady. Concerning. The set medic arrives, takes one look and calls for the emergency medical kit, starts cutting away the vest. The metal fragment is deep. Can't just pull it out. Too close to vital organs. One wrong move and they could cause massive internal bleeding. But here's what nobody expected. Here's what separates Stallone from almost anyone else. He's still standing, still conscious, still professional. He asks the cinematographer, "Did we get the shot?" The cinematographer, shocked, says, "Sly, you're hurt. We need to..." Stallone cuts him off. "Did we get the shot?" "Yes. It's perfect." Stallone nods. "Good." Then he looks at the medic. "Okay, now we can deal with this." Only then does he allow himself to collapse. Not dramatically, not theatrically. Just his knees give out. The adrenaline that kept him moving, kept him standing, kept him finishing the take finally releases. His body acknowledges the trauma. The pain crashes over him like a wave. He goes down. Crew members catch him, lower him carefully onto a stretcher. The medic is working fast. The fragment is still hot, still burning tissue. They need to cool it, stabilize it, get Stallone to a hospital. The nearest facility, with a trauma surgeon, is 40 miles away. In Philippines traffic, that's 90 minutes minimum. They don't have 90 minutes if there's internal bleeding. The production has a helicopter on standby for emergencies exactly like this. Within 8 minutes, Stallone is loaded up. The helicopter lifts off. Cosmatos is in radio contact with the pilot. The entire set has gone from celebration to crisis. People are crying, praying. This man just gave everything for their movie, literally bled for it, and now he might die for it. Stallone is conscious during the flight. In shock, but conscious. The medic has started an IV, given him something for the pain, but not too much. Need to keep him responsive. Need to monitor for internal bleeding. Stallone keeps asking if they got the shot, keeps asking if it looked good. The medic doesn't understand, can't comprehend why this matters right now, but it matters to Stallone, because that's who he is. That's what drives him. The work, the craft, the commitment to giving audiences something real. They reach the hospital. Trauma team is waiting. They get Stallone into surgery within 15 minutes of landing. The metal fragment is removed. It had penetrated 2.3 inches deep, lodged between his 8th and 9th rib, millimeters from his lung. If it had gone slightly deeper, slightly more to the left, it would have punctured the lung, possibly the heart. Stallone would have died on that set. The surgery takes 3 hours. They find additional damage. The heat from the metal caused internal burns, tissue damage. The fragment was so hot it had cauterized some of the blood vessels, which actually prevented more serious bleeding. A horrible injury that accidentally saved his life. Stallone wakes up 11 hours after the explosion. First thing he asks, did they use the footage? The doctor has no idea what he's talking about. The producer, who's been waiting at the hospital, says, yes, Sly, it's incredible. Best action sequence we've ever shot. Stallone closes his eyes, smiles. Good. When can I get back to work? The doctor is stunned. Mr. Stallone, you nearly died. You need weeks of recovery. Possibly months, Stallone says. We're behind schedule. How soon can I move? The doctor says, you can't, not for. Stallone interrupts. I'll be careful. We'll modify the stunts. But we're not shutting down production. That's not bravado. That's not ego. That's responsibility. Stallone knows that 150 people depend on this movie for their income, that millions of dollars are invested, that if production stops, the movie might not get finished, people might lose their jobs. The studio might pull the plug, so he'll recover, he'll heal, he'll get back to work, because that's what professionals do. 6 days later, Stallone is back on set. Doctor's orders were 2 weeks minimum. Stallone negotiated down to 6 days. He can't do the physical stunts yet. Can't run, can't dive, can't take impacts, but he can do dialogue scenes. Can do close-ups. Can keep production moving while his stunt double handles the action. The crew is shocked to see him. Weren't expecting him for weeks. Some thought he might not come back at all. But here he is, moving carefully, obviously in pain, but professional, ready to work. What nobody knows until years later is how close that explosion came to ending everything. The investigation revealed that charge number 7 had a manufacturing defect. The directional plating had a microscopic crack. When it detonated, instead of directing all debris outward, a fragment shot backward, directly at Stallone. 1 in a million chance. If he'd been standing 2 inches to the left, it would have missed him completely. 2 inches to the right, it would have hit his spine. But it hit exactly where it did. Serious enough to cause major injury, not serious enough to kill him. Not serious enough to stop him. Rambo: First Blood Part 2 becomes one of the biggest movies of 1985, makes $300 million worldwide. The explosion sequence that nearly killed Stallone becomes one of the most iconic moments in action cinema. Film students study it. Other directors try to replicate it. But they can't. Because what makes it work isn't the explosions, it's Stallone. It's the reality of his performance. The fact that he was actually in danger, actually moving through real fire and real explosions. Audiences feel that authenticity, feel the stakes. That's why it works. Years later, in interviews, Stallone talks about that day, says the scariest part wasn't the injury, was the thought that they might not have gotten the shot, that he might have failed, that his injury might have been for nothing. Only when they confirmed the footage was perfect could he relax, could accept the pain, because it meant something. It served the story. It gave audiences something real. That's the difference between Stallone and almost everyone else in Hollywood. The willingness to bleed for the work, not metaphorically, literally. To put everything on the line because the story matters more than safety, more than comfort, more than self-preservation. That's not recklessness. That's devotion. That's what separates good from great. That's what makes legends. The scar on Stallone's back is still there, a permanent reminder of the day he almost died for Rambo. He calls it his professional souvenir, a mark of what he was willing to sacrifice for his craft, for his audience, for the character that defined his career. Because 12 seconds of film cost him 3 inches of penetrating metal and 3 months of recovery. But those 12 seconds created a moment that's been watched by millions, that's inspired countless filmmakers, that proved action movies could be art if you were willing to make them real. If you were willing to pay the price, who are you bleeding for? What are you willing to sacrifice for your craft? Because Stallone didn't finish that take because he's superhuman. He finished it because he's professional. Because the work mattered more than the pain. That's not about being tough. That's about being committed. About understanding that great things require great sacrifice. Stallone gave everything for those 12 seconds, and 40 years later, we're still talking about it, still watching it, still feeling the impact. That's what happens when you refuse to stop, when you finish the take even when you're bleeding, when you make the pain mean something.